3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Show Me Trucks. In this video, let me show you a little how-to on how I wired up my turn signals and brake lights for my 36 back here. If you have a normal column, this is not so confusing. I wanted to show it because it was hard to find anything on the internet about it, and I just want to let you guys see how I did it. I'm sure it's not perfect. It's a solution if you want to keep the original column. This is the inside of my truck. I want it to look like this. I don't want to have a bolt-on turn signal set up. I hid all my stuff up under here. There's a simple switch that does your turn signals. So to do that, the easiest way for me, I ran 5 relays, and those silver canisters are flashers. So those are thermal flashers. Obviously, you kind of need to know a couple things about wiring to do this. So, one thing is how a relay works. If you've never worked on any of these, this is what a relay is. A relay is basically to help switch power. It really helps whenever you have old switches that don't want to run a whole lot of amperage through them. I think of it like railroad tracks, like a train. So, if you have power coming into 30, it comes down here, and it will always run over to 87A. On the back of a relay, there's 5 prongs. Obviously, they're all numbered. If you need something that always has power, and then when you hit a switch, it doesn't have power, you can run it off 87A. If you need something that is only powered whenever you hit the switch, you can run your power from 87 to a light or any other accessory. And then whenever you put power into 86 right here, it'll pull that lever over. So think of it like a train. It will pull it over to 87 and it connects the dots. So now this 87 has power. You can run these all sorts of different ways. You can run these where this 86 always has power, and then another switch is controlling the ground. You know, there's lots of different ways you can run these, but this is the general one that you'll see auto parts stores and on cars. This is my setup. And like I said, I just didn't want to run a turn signal setup like this. This is an older bolt-on one. You know, these older steering columns didn't have turn signals, so you need to run it. If you have a newer column, and this isn't even that new, the 67 column, and this is as simple as it's gonna get. It's a manual steering column, so it doesn't have shifter linkage. This setup is your ground setup for your horn button. This plastic piece will rotate with your turn signals and connect the same thing as this relay is going to do. It's going to put power to your left signal, put power to your right signal, and also when you turn the wheel, it will release it and let it go back. So obviously when you have your turn signal on and then you make a turn, it should turn itself off. If you don't have any of that and you have an older column, this is what you need to do. And that's also why there's so much wiring into a steering column. If you never knew, there's a lot going on in there. In like a 67, you'd have a flasher for your hazards and you'd have a flasher for your turn signals. Well, I ran mine a little different. So let me show you. So this is the setup. You can zoom in if you need to. Basically, anywhere I have the red, that's constant 12 volt. It's still fused. So if you need to know the difference between fused and unfused, you always want to run fused. If something pulls too much amperage through it, it can melt your wires and catch your truck on fire. If you have a fuse in the way, it melts that fuse and then it saves your wiring, it saves your truck. Constant 12 volt always has access to your battery. Key 12 volt is only applies power when your key switch is turned on. So that's a big thing with cars is key power versus constant 12 volt. My brake switch, which I'll put a picture up of, is a pressure brake switch. You can also have a mechanical brake switch, but all that is doing is whenever the brakes are applied, it is connecting the dots and letting electricity flow through it. So this brake switch is normally open. So voltage cannot go through it. Whenever you hit the brakes, voltage can come through it. So the way I wired it is these would be considered all your brake relays. These would be your turn signal relays. I need constant power to come through here. That way, if I hit my brake, it can all flow through and go to my brake lights. So if you hit the brake at all, it flows through all the blue lines at the same time. They're actually all tied in together. You can mount that how you want. If you wanted all 3 different wires going to it, you could. It's just, you don't need to. And so if you hit the brake, it does my left light and it does my right light at the same time. And it also, what it does over here is on a LS engine, your torque converter lockup, your computer needs a constant power to it unless your brakes are applied, and then it lets loose of that torque converter. So it needs to be 12 volt key power, because if not, whenever your car's off, it would still be drawing voltage through there, and it would most likely kill your battery. So that's why you need key power. So everything else is constant 12 volt on here except for that PCM signal. The big headache that I was having is I was trying to not have very many relays. These are about $15 a piece, and I think it looks a little messy the more you run, but I kind of ran it the way I ran it. You can do whatever you want to do. I have constant 12 volt up to this turn switch also. So the center terminal has power coming through it, and whenever you flip the switch, it directs the electricity either to the left side or the right side. If you do your left lights, what it does is it 87 has no power unless you put power to the signal side of the relay. So whenever you put power here, it pulls that over, that 12 volt comes through, it goes through your flasher, and like I said, it's a thermal flasher, so it lets power through. When it heats up, it opens up, it cools down, and then it just cycles it. That's what your flasher, that's how your turn signal works. So it will power down to my brake light if that left turn signal is on. Also, what it's doing over here is that brake switch would normally be able to flow. Well, whenever you hit your turn signal, it opens, it moves that lever over here off 87A over to 87, and so now your brake lights cannot work. So the big issue that I was having is whenever you stop at an intersection and your turn signal's on, you want your turn signal to still be on. Your one brake light will still be applied, but not your other one. So it's a little hard to wrap your head around that, but this is how I ran it as far as whenever your turn signal's on, your brake light cannot be on. Whenever your right turn signal's on, your right brake light cannot work, but your left brake light can work. The reason I ran my hazards like that is because I actually had them kind of wired up wrong at first. Everything was already wired up here, so I ran it like this. Your hazard is a 2-prong switch. So open, you flip the switch, it's closed. I just linked my left turn signal to my right turn signal. So your hazards, if you don't flip the switch and you have your hazards connected, nothing's gonna happen. But if you're gonna run your hazards, you need to flip the switch left or right, it doesn't matter, because it's going to work your left turn signal and also connect the dots and work your right turn signal. I thought that was the simplest way for me because I ran a hazard button up in my glove box. I need the PCM to get that torque converter signal. The other thing I wanted to show you is I have lights in my gauges and they have a turn signal indicator. So, you know, like whenever you hit your turn signals, you can tell if they're on inside your cab, which is handy. So to wire that, I needed it after the flasher. That way it flashes for me. Well, the way I have it right now is if you hit the brake, that light is also going to come on. And if you know, like a 67 that gauge cluster, if you hit the brake, it tells you that you hit the brake. So I guess it lets you know your brakes are working. You'll probably find out anyway when you hit the tree. But I ran mine like this. So I wanted to know when my turn signal or flashers are on. So I connected that so that knows. And then also my front turn signal is also tied in. So if I hit the brake, my front turn signal also lights up. Some people probably don't like that. I don't actually care if you're in the front. Cool, you know I'm gonna brake. You also know my turn signal's working. So I kind of tied it in this way. One issue I was having was placement of the flasher. If you hit the brake, it sends power to all these directions. So it'll also send power up here. It can go across that flasher, but it's not going anywhere because those dots are not connected. The only thing it could maybe do, which I don't see that happening, is heating up that flasher when my brake lights are on. And maybe that would pulse the light just a little bit, but I don't see that happening. If that happens, maybe I'll update this video and let you know. And then on your brake light, you also have your running lights. So you have 2 prongs on your lights if you have a dual filament light. So usually on the 67, it's a brown wire. That way, whenever your headlights are on, your running lights are on, and then whenever you hit the brake, it's really bright. So that's how I ran it, if you guys needed to know. I hope that helps any of you guys if you're having any questions about how to run your brake lights and your turn signals with the LS engine, because this is kind of important, the torque lockup. And all this constant 12 volt, I actually ran all mine together except for the turn signal power. I think I ran off a different fuse. Another reason you like relays is because you can power up a bunch of different relays at once. If you're powering the signal wire 86, because these draw like 0.16 amps compared to, I think you're powering your headlights or a fan or something, and it's going to have a lot of amperage coming through there. So it's kind of an easy way to run less heavy wire and run a relay. You'll see a lot of relays up on core supports, stuff like that. It's because your signal wire, it's just moving that magnet's just moving that lever side to side. I hope this helps any of you guys. If you guys see any faults with this, let me know. I actually don't have my battery hooked up, so I can't verify that all this works. And I don't have all sorts of things from my headlights and taillights. So that's how it looked. I'm a big fan of tidy wiring. So you can make these look as good or as ugly as you want. But I mounted all that like that. And then I used all these crimp-on connections. And I usually don't. I usually pull the plastic off and then solder the joint and then shrink wrap around it. But because all those are so close, I actually like those because then they don't butt up against the other terminal and short it out or have any issues. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this helped someone, because it's really hard to find this information online. I'm assuming because a lot of people just put in like a simpler turn signal or throw in a newer steering column, which now I totally understand. These are worth the money. Just go ahead and put the newer column in if that's the look you're going for. So thanks for watching. Later.